This year, we're called to put together a slate of candidates for 4 positions on the vestry and 4 delegates to the Diocesan Convention. And to do our work, we met weekly, pretty much weekly from August through October. And as is our tradition, we spent quite a bit of time thinking about what kind of leadership can complement the existing leadership here and who can represent the diverse skills and perspectives from our entire community. So this year, the committee is pleased to present 4 candidates for a 3-year term to vestry: Faith Kuramang. And I can pause if you'd like to, if we have a chance to highlight, or okay. There's Faith. And Ford Morishida. He's all right, well, we can't find him today. He's here somewhere. Alan Murray. There's Alan. Morning, Alan. And Barbara Whitmore. There's Barbara. Great. Thanks.
May I have a motion to approve the vestry slate of Faith, Ford, Allen, and Barbara Whitmore to serve on vestry as presented by the nominating committee?
So moved. Second.
Second.
Thank you. If you second, say your name, would you please? Or if you so move.
Alan Oliver.
Okay,
Thomas Aschenbrenner, second.
thank you. All in favor, please raise your hands. Great, the motion's moved. Thank you. We would like to thank our retiring members of vestry who have served for the last 3 years: Marty Anderson, Thomas Aschenbrenner, and Stephen David. Each has been a vital contributor to the vision and work of the vestry. We will truly miss them, their wisdom, their commitment, and their passion for life at Trinity. As is standard, the outgoing vestry receives flowers at the annual meeting, but because of the pandemic, these bouquets have already been sent to them. Nathan?
The other fun thing that happens when a vestry member retires from vestry or moves on is that they are inducted into a very special society. I'm opening the special packet here because it just came in the mail yesterday, thankfully. The old tradition at Trinity Cathedral was that the way to become an usher was that you first had to have served on the vestry. The entire usher guild was made up of former vestry members. And I don't know that it's been documented that our ushers wore white gloves, but that's the time-tested insignia of an usher. I'm not going to make these 3 individuals serve as ushers unless they want to. Marty already does. And Thomas and Stephen, we would love to have you in that ministry, but put out your hands because here are your white gloves and you are now members of the Vestry Alumni Society, also known as the White Glove Society. And the Ministry of Hospitality and Welcome and Policing Bad Behavior is now yours.
Thank you all for your service. Now back to Stephen to present the Diocesan Convention delegates.
Great. Okay, so as I mentioned, the other responsibility of the nominating committee is to identify candidates to serve as delegates to the Diocesan Convention. This year, we were identifying 4. The delegates represent Trinity at the convention, which meets annually and takes care of business for the Oregon Diocese. And in case you're interested in knowing a little bit about what they do, one thing in particular that they did this year was took responsibility for electing our new bishop. So this year, the nominating committee would like to present 1 candidate to serve a 3-year term. That's Chris Hardman. Ooh, I think I see him there. And then 3 alternates to serve as full delegates starting next year. And those are Beth Ferguson, Alicia Johnson. Oh, sorry, Beth Ferguson. Do we see her? Yeah, Alicia Johnson and Stephanie Montgomery. Thanks.
May I have a motion to approve the slate of nominees for the Diocesan Convention representatives as presented by the nominating committee?
So moved. Jerry?
Thank you. Second?
Second, Matt Thompson.
Thanks, Matt. All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. We would also like to extend Really important thanks to Cassie Clark and Keith Walters for their service as delegates in the past years. Were we in the cathedral, we would celebrate a bit more, but not so much this year. But thank you so much for your 3 years of dedicated service. Now we'll move on to the nominating committee. And Stephen David has covered some of this already, but by constitution, the nominating committee consists of the dean and the senior and junior wardens, the retiring members of the vestry, and 5 members at large elected at the annual meeting. At this meeting, the meeting of 2021 January, will be nominating a slate who will propose a slate for 2022. So it's sort of confusing which year we're talking about. You'll do your work in 21 for members for 22. The nominating committee is the committee that discerns the future needs of Trinity leadership, skills, vocations, gifts, history. The committee prepares a slate of potential vestry members as well as a slate of diocesan delegates, just as we have voted on. As a note of clarity, the diocesan delegates who come on as the first year are actually alternates to the convention the first year of their service. Through prayer, discernment, time, and collaboration, the committee creates a slate of candidates presented to the vestry for approval and to the congregation for election. We invite nominations for both vestry and diocesan delegates from the congregation during the time the committee meets and does their work during the fall. As Stephen said, Mike Vaughter will be chairing the upcoming committee as a third-year vestry member. Now, before proceeding for this is where we're going to change up our hand-raising possibilities. Because we have 6-7 pages of 25 people online, what we'd like you to do, if you'd like to nominate someone, is use your reaction button and raise your hand. Not your physical hand, your reaction button. We won't respond to physical hands because that would mean people at the very end of page 7 wouldn't get a chance. So the first person who hits the button are the people we're going to call upon. The second thing to really remember is since we aren't in the Kempton Hall, where there's a lot of chatter during this, we can't turn around and ask Greg Harris if he'll do it. I'm going to nominate you and will you do it? We can't do that. So make sure if you nominate someone, you know that they can serve and are willing to serve. And if we're not sure, we can actually adjust that if we have to, but be sure you're nominating people that are willing and able. All right, so I will remember to use your reaction hand, unmute yourself while presenting your candidate, and then mute yourself again. All right, may I see a reaction hand raised to nominate someone for nominating committee? Okay, then. Arwen, do you see anyone? Katie? Anybody? If in fact we're not seeing you and you've raised a hand, or if I've scared you too much, call out your name so we can find you and you can make your selection. Lynn Jenks, I see, but you're muted, Lynn. Lynn, you're muted. Okay.
I can't, oh wait.
You're muted again, Lynn.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I can figure out where this button is that we're supposed to push.
Do you have someone you'd like to nominate?
Well, I hadn't thought that far ahead. I was focused on the button.
Okay. Well, if you can't find the button, just unmute yourself, give us the name, and then if you're in the top 5, that's good.
Okay.
Terry
All right.
Pankos
We
has
do
his
have
hand up,
2.
Leigh.
We do have 2. Okay, I see Terry Pancoast. Unmute yourself, Terry, please.
Yeah. I'd like
Yes.
to nominate Barbara Bracken.
Okay, thank you. And Jen Anderson.
Yes, if it's okay, I would like to nominate myself.
Okay. We're still looking for 3 more.
Barbara Bracken, do you accept the nomination? Do we know that that's the case? Gary, you talked with Barbara. She's cool with it.
I will accept. I have also agreed with Mike Vaughter to be secretary, so.
Perfect. Thank you,
I can
Barbara.
do both.
All right, we're looking for some more hands. And if you haven't asked them, we can ask them if they're at this meeting, just like we did with Barbara. Am I going to have to come and get you guys later? Okay. Do I see Steve and David?
I will nominate Steve Isaacson.
Steve Isaacson, do you accept?
I was already once approached about that, and I have to decline this year. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank
though.
you.
Thanks.
Still looking for 3. You guys are making this meeting really long.
Chris Hardman here. I haven't talked to Bill Bard, but I would nominate him, and he's on the line. He's right there on my screen. So
Bill, do you accept?
all right then.
Okay, we've got Bill Bard. We're looking for 2 more people, please. Deb or Debbie. Unmute.
Okay, we recommend Barbara Milliken.
Barbara Milliken, are you on the line and do you accept?
I don't see her in the list, so we might need to check with her outside this meeting.
Okay.
She may be here and not named.
Okay,
so
we're looking for 1 more nominee for the nominating committee. And now this isn't a long, arduous, year-long committee, though Mike said he might start it early, but we usually start in August or so. Mike may begin it a little bit earlier this year, but we're usually done by late October. Yeah, Lynn, go ahead and unmute.
I'll nominate myself.
Okay. Have you asked yourself?
Only this minute.
Okay. Thank you. We have a class of 5 as follows: Barbara Bracken, Jan Anderson, Bill Bard, Barbara Milliken, Lynn Jenks. The following individuals will be elected by slate and serve as representatives to the congregation on the 2021 nominating committee for the 2022 slates. With these 5 yeah, we've already spotlighted you, but if you can, raise your hand again so that we can raise your reaction hand so we can spotlight you and see who you are. And we'll give you a minute to do that. Okay, may I have a motion to instruct the clerk to cast a unanimous ballot to approve these individuals?
So moved.
Your
David
name?
Mitchell.
Thanks, David. Second?
Second, Terry Pancoast.
Thanks, Terry. All in favor? Motion passed. Thank you for you 5 for your upcoming service. All right, we'll move along. Now I'd like to invite our treasurer, Jerry Brown, to present the treasurer's report.
Thank you, Leigh. Since last year's annual meeting at Kempton Hall, I met with you in June at a forum, and then Bill Bard hosted Leigh and me at a meeting on October 11th. And so I just want to take this opportunity to update you a little bit because of the pandemic and the unknowns. As you may be aware, we passed a dynamic budget for fiscal 2020-2021 due to the many unknowns due to the pandemic. And at January's Finance Committee meeting and at Vestry, we reviewed and then approved of an updated budget. And this updated budget for the remainder of the fiscal year, running between now and June 30th of this year, revenues were lowered by about $96,000, as were our expenses. And the revenues, it was a combination of pledge offerings. And then what we call miscellaneous income, and it's really just room fees and parking lot income, and they've all been impacted by the pandemic. Thankfully, we were able to also have commensurate reductions in expenses, some of that just due to the closure of the cathedral, and the expenses related to the closure were lower. But program and our ministries are going on pretty much as budgeted. So we're very thankful for that. Also at the January Vestry meeting, we received and approved the auditor's report for the past fiscal year. And I'll note that we did receive a clean opinion. And in summary, the cathedral is in good financial position. And I want to thank you all for your generous continuing support. That's really all I have, unless there are questions, and I wouldn't entertain those here, but I'm easy to contact. My information is in Realm and also in the bulletin, so I would gladly entertain any questions that you might have privately. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. I do want to say that Jerry and Sally have worked very diligently on this budget, watching it monthly because we were worried about consequences of the environment and the pandemic. And to come forward and revisit the budget a second time in a year is an arduous task, but they have done it and they took their time, and we're in brilliant hands. So thank you, Jerry and Sally. I'd like to invite one of the co-chairs of our annual giving campaign, Kimberly Crouch, to give an update on our current campaign.
Good morning, everybody. I am absolutely thrilled to report that the annual giving campaign has received $1,531,714. I know you all have the number of what we were asking for in your heads, but in fact, that's 97% of our way toward meeting our expected need for the coming budget year. So thank you so very much to all of you who pledged so generously. Of course, if you're here, we'd love to get those last few dollars as possible. The other thing that I am absolutely really delighted and pleased about is this year, for the first time, we actually had a participation goal, which is something we've never thought to do before. And last year we had 710 pledging units. And this year, my co-chairs, namely Greg Harris, Jerry, and I, set a goal of getting 725 pledges. I'd like to say we blew that goal out of the water, and we have 738 pledging units this year, of which we are, I mean, we couldn't be more pleased. Of that number, we have 114 new pledging units. So that means 114 new families or individuals that have pledged and perhaps are here at this meeting. So I want to stress how thrilled we are to have you as part of our cathedral community. Each one of you will bring new insight and good cheer and new talents to our various ministries here at Trinity, and we could not be more grateful for your presence. And of course, I would like to thank all of our old pledging units as well for continuing their presence, for their continued presence in our church home. Finally, I want to give a very special thanks to Shannon Tilton, along with my co-chairs, Greg and Jerry. I have to say, Shannon does so much of the legwork in accomplishing all that we need to, and we are forever grateful for her support and are very blessed in our endeavors in the annual giving campaign. I do want to say that we would also, I want to add one more thanks, and that is to all of the members of our advisory committee this year. Again, for the first time this year, actually, no, we did have a very small advisory committee last year, and this year we grew that advisory committee to 30 members of our parish family to reach out to everyone of their friends and partners in ministry, so that each of us got a special reminder that of how important our pledge campaign is and how important our annual giving campaign is. So thank you to each of you. I don't really have time to name you all, but you know who you are. So thank you. And I believe that's all I have to report. I'd be happy to take questions, or I am also, Leigh shaking her head, so please email me. My contact information is in Realm, and I would love to hear from you. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
And I also want to be humbled by the fact that Kimberly, Greg Harris, and Jerry Petty have agreed to co-chair it again next year. So we are in very good hands. It took a little bit of a bribe, but not much. So I'm thrilled for that. We are blessed to have them once again. They're a fabulous team. As an aside, Arwen, I got a text that we're maxed out at 100 and there are people who can't get into this. Is there a way to change that now?
No, we don't know why, and I'll take this opportunity to apologize to those of you who are watching on YouTube. We did upgrade this account to 500 and it's not working, so clearly we did something wrong when we set it up. But if people ask you, and this goes for anybody, we're live streaming to the YouTube channel, and I'll put the link to the channel in the chat, but that's the easiest thing to tell people for now, and we really apologize.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'd like to invite Steve Easterday, our junior warden, to give his report.
I am not finding Steve in the participants list. Steve, if you're here, can you unmute yourself and maybe raise your hand with a reaction so we can spotlight you and hear from you?
I wonder if he's one of those that's left out.
You guys, I have Steve on the telephone with me. He's trying to get onto YouTube, but he wasn't. So far, he isn't able to.
Okay.
He was going to dictate the report through me, but I don't feel that spiritual today, so I'll let you figure something else out.
Thank you, Bill.
Bill, if you're on phone with him, we have space in the meeting now, so he should be able to get onto the Zoom call now.
Wow. Well, tell him.
Thank you. Please apologize to him for us. We will also do that in a minute.
Okay, well, while we're waiting for him, I'll continue with the senior warden's report. Forgive me if I forget anything or miss someone, because I have a lot in here, but there's way much more that I could say. And I'll just start, well, isn't this a first? It's been quite a year. Let's talk about the firsts. Annual meeting, the first Trinity annual meeting held on Zoom. The cathedral, the first time in 100 years to have a consecration of our bishop at our Trinity Cathedral. The first consecration when Trinity wasn't filled to the walls with clergy and laypersons, yet it couldn't have been more beautiful and more elegant. The first time we've held ordinations and other diocesan events without a crowd. The first confirmations when the congregation could not attend the beautiful welcoming service in person. The first time we've created sacred time at the cathedral when only 20 people can be present for our pilgrimages. The first time many weddings, memorials, and funerals have been delayed until we can join together again. The first time we've had a virtual Palm Sunday procession. The first time all Sunday services have been online, including first Sundays. The first time very few were in church to see the beautiful flowers that the Flower Guild still provides, where the flowers on the altar, were they not there, we might feel even more distant and remote. It's a portion of our deep beauty. The first time that wine is not served at communion and all wafers are wrapped. The choir, the first time the choir has a group of 2, 4, or 8 in a space built for hundreds, singing masked and distanced. Perhaps the first time the choir's ever had to cancel a long planned tour to Europe. The first time we have not seen the children's choir in quite some time. New hires, the first priest hired at Trinity during a pandemic when not many of us got the privilege of meeting her. Welcome, Shanna. The first time we've brought on a new organ scholar when we've only thus far seen her virtually for the most part. Classes for intellectual capacity. The first time all classes are presented virtually and still have wonderful, diverse offerings. The first time church school for our youth, including godly play, happens to be on a computer or iPad. The committees. The first time committees, commissions, and guild meetings are all held online, yet they continue to be dedicated and productive in their work. Communication, the first time almost nothing has been in print, but the graphics, the artwork, the messaging throughout the last 10 months has been exceedingly well done, thoughtful, beautiful, and exquisite. The first time newcomers has gone virtual and has become connect to a greater number of people, and our coffee hour feels like a coffee hour with Bill at the head of that, and quite a successful way to connect after church. The pantry, the first time our pantry workers are masked as they prepare and distribute lunches to our neighborhood guests. The choir, the first time the choir has a group, oops, I've done that. Page 3. Parking lot, the first time there are no cars in the parking lot, so we get no complaints about lack of parking spaces. Staff, the first time staff worked more remotely from home than in their Trinity offices, except for perhaps the sextons. Cathedral and parish hall work, the first time to repurpose and remodel a room with no one around to see or use it. The first time the sextons have had the opportunity to refurbish most of the antique, beautiful wooden furniture in the building at one time. The first time floors could be refinished without canceling events or reorganizing space. The first time staff could focus on the beautification of the cathedral while it's empty. The first time staff has spent hundreds of hours and multiple people working on our virtual audio and visual presentations. Finances, the first annual budget that we presented as a flexible and dynamic and adjustable budget as we needed to do due to the uncertainty of our economy. The annual giving campaign, the first time in at least many years that we've had 114 new pledges in a time when they cannot even come to the cathedral except for pilgrimages or virtually. The first time we have created a larger advisory committee to act as liaisons, developing leadership and creating a new, broader ministry of giving. Vestry. And focused on holy compassion. The first time the Vestry created a position statement as an initial call to action in response to Black Lives Matter and Trinity's legacy of white privilege. The first time Vestry's vision and work from the 2020 retreat was laid aside to focus on critical matters of the time, including our financial security, our lunch pantry program, our focus on diversity, inclusion, and community, our education offerings, our sustainability, our discussions regarding safe practices in the time of COVID, our concern about the hearts and minds of all of us distanced from our parish, and the questions about the future of church attendance. Clergy deserves, the first time clergy has probably ever put so many hours in, but has learned to give sermons on Zoom and classes on Zoom and be in a cathedral where you're speaking to hundreds over a little camera. We're so grateful for all of our clergy and the time and efforts they've had to put in to do that. The cameras, the sextons, all the cameras that we've appreciated that they've put in and their extra duties that they've had to carry on. The staff, I foremost want to thank the staff, each and every one of you, for the work you've done, the hours you've had to put in, the commitment to Trinity, the resourcefulness you have exhibited, the above the call duty of responses when needed, the vision of opportunities and possibilities. Those I work with most closely, Katie, Shannon, and Sally, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for guiding me and putting up with me. And to Nathan, I thank you for your leadership, your vision, your boldness, your willingness to step out of the comfort zone, your compassion, your dedication, and for your love for this place and all of us. To the congregation, our parish family, and yet we helped accomplish all this. together by seeking new opportunities, staying positive, looking for new and multiple ways to connect with each other, listening deeply for needs of our fellow parishioners, and then mobilizing into action. And in spite of much heartache, loneliness, and sometimes despair, we stay together united, most of all by staying connected, committed, compassionate, and in prayer. Yes, it's been quite a year. Thank you all for your support and encouragement and commitment to our church home. All right. Do we have Stephen Easterday back?
He is. He's on the call.
I am.
Okay.
For the first time, I haven't been able to recognize a camera. It's usually I've had audio problems, but this time it's the video. Thank you all. I have a junior warden report for you. I ditto everything that Leigh has said as well for jointly and compassion. We have a cathedral that turns 115 years old this year. The office building will be 65 years old, and Kempton Hall will be 83 years old. We have had an unusual year on many fronts. We continue our stewardship together of our buildings and campus. You wouldn't know it by how the furniture has been refurbished. The bookstore is gleaming new welcome center, a gleaming kitchen and library, new heating and air conditioning in the offices, and the electronics for a mini production studio for our weekly services. We added the refurbishment of the Morrison Room and new furniture the 1st of December. A description of our projects completed this year is in the annual report on page 14. I would like to thank Katie Bronson for running a tight ship, and Gardner Grice, our facilities manager and head sexton, with all the other sextons for their exceptional work. Jim Hebert, Elise Sandusky, Haga Bueller, Michael Emerson, John Boss, Michael Metzner, Kevin Mullane. Also would like to thank the members of the Buildings and Grounds Committee of the Vestry for sticking with me this year that Dale assembled last. Nancy Bennett, Carol Furtado, Bob Hadlow, David Altermont, Jerry Powell, and Tobin Wheeler. Thank you all for your hard work, and I look forward to new work this year. We have more planned maintenance projects and capital projects and investigating the new roof that we need on Kempton Hall. Thank you all, and Stephen Easterday, Junior Warden. Thank you, Leigh and Nathan.
Thank you, Stephen. Glad you could make it. All right, I'm going to turn the meeting over now to our Dean, Nathan.
Thank you, Leigh. So the theme of the year is resilience. And as you've heard from Leigh, this has been a really strange year, in some ways a really hard year. And I think we're finding various ways to process some of the grief that we're experiencing in all kinds of ways. But there is also, amid all of that grief, a lot to celebrate this year. And one of the things that you should know, Arwen and I are very proud about this, and this congregation deserves to own a lot of the pride, is that we are beginning to be on the map, kind of a little bit nationally among Episcopal churches that are looking to see who's doing some really interesting and innovative things with technology. We were asked to put together a little video this year. Trinity is part of a consortium called the Consortium for Endowed Episcopal Parishes. That's a very fancy name. We call it SEEP. But we're being spotlighted at the SEEP conference this year, and we were asked to put together a little film about what resilience has looked like for us this year. So Arwen is going to share that video, which is a quick little tidbit into some of the resilience that we built.
Here at Trinity Cathedral in downtown Portland, Oregon, building a community of resilience has looked like doubling down on our core competencies, even as we search for new ways to extend our mission and our ministries. For many generations, Trinity has served as a beacon of uncommon warmth, holy compassion, intellectual curiosity, and deep beauty in this community. And this pandemic has given us the opportunity to pivot very quickly to new technologies that have enabled us to extend those competencies in a hybrid way, virtually and in person. Uncommon Warmth has looked a little bit different this year, as the Cathedral campus has been closed to the public since March. However, working with our diocesan and state officials, we found some creative ways to make sure that the cathedral, which was built as a house of prayer, continues to serve that primary function. Every week, as part of our cathedral pilgrimages, between 25 and 40 or 50 people, many of them longtime parishioners, many of them people from around our neighborhood and across our diocese who have never set foot inside our doors, journey to Trinity for an in-person pilgrimage. They're hosted by our hospitality team. They're invited to spend up to an hour in prayer, receive the sacrament, light a candle, visit with loved ones who are buried in our memorial garden. This opportunity to offer radical hospitality in accordance with strict governmental guidelines has been really transformative for us and has brought new energy into our community. Our call to holy compassion, too, has deepened as Kempton Hall, which was built at the height of the Great Depression, has become a staging area for Trinity's daily food pantry. We're the only emergency food provider in our zip code. And even though the cathedral campus has been closed since March, this daily food ministry has continued thanks to the dedication of both our longtime volunteers and the many new hands who have stepped up to ensure that our food insecure neighbors know they can always find something to eat, a friendly smile, and a compassionate ear at Trinity. Our wide range of classes for adults and kids, long a hallmark of this community, are all happening on Zoom these days, and that's allowing us to reach a much broader population. We have learners coming to us from as far away as Canada, New Zealand, the United Arab Emirates. And thanks to the generosity and the vision of our parishioners, we were able to very quickly raise more than $65,000. That's allowed us to make unbudgeted but much needed technological improvements to this cathedral. And that's allowed us to begin streaming high quality music and worship, this deep beauty of our Anglican tradition, on Facebook and on YouTube. We've been serving as a resource for our diocese, streaming ordinations. We'll be streaming the upcoming consecration of our new bishop, Diana Akiyama. And through it all, Trinity's vestry and staff have embraced this call to stand on the front lines of movements for social change. Trinity parishioners have really taken to the streets. They've found roles of leadership in this movement. And despite arrest and abuse at the hands of law enforcement, our young Trinity leaders continue to raise their voices in cries of protest and in songs of freedom. The fact that some of our youngest members, the ones trained in our choir programs, formed by our godly play teachers, the fact that these youngest members of the cathedral are the voice and the leadership of this movement for social justice is, to me, the most hopeful sign of resilience we are seeing as this community becomes more diverse, more engaged, and more able to respond with nimbleness and compassion as we look to the other side of this pandemic. I am not interested in going back to the way things used to be. At Trinity, we are already building our new normal, this way of being church for the 21st century, a hybrid model, a congregation both online and embodied, an activist congregation that brings together all kinds of people from all over the world who are compelled and convicted by a commitment to engage the work of Jesus as it is speaking to us right now.
Thank you, Arwen. So resilience is the theme. What does it look like to stay connected and build resilience in a weird time? You might remember last year at the annual meeting, I invited you to dream with me about a moonshot. We were looking at the information from our, every 5 years we survey the congregation to get a sense of where you are. And we talked a little bit about what a moonshot might look like, maybe growth, expansion of our facilities, replication, mentoring other congregations. I told you I had no interest in mentoring other congregations. I do not like the consultant gig. The woman who did our survey really wanted us to go around the country and talk about how we did it. I said, nope, not doing that, but it's starting to happen. So, don't ever tell the Holy Spirit you don't want to do something. Increase our external impact was something we talked about. Turns out our moonshot for the year, the big audacious goal, I said, we'll probably fail at it, but getting in the process of working towards it, we'll learn something really interesting. Haha, little did I know that the big audacious goal was going to be like maintaining some semblance of congregational life when we couldn't be in the cathedral for a full year and beyond. It has been something of a moonshot. It's not the moonshot I chose, would have chosen. It's what life has handed us. And I actually am really proud of this congregation. For the staff, certainly, but for all of you who have stuck together. I know it has not been easy and it continues to not be easy. I still hear your, this is frustrating in all kinds of ways for all of us. And yet we are putting our best foot forward and we're becoming leaders in this church, in this denomination for how to do church in a new way. That's not going to stop, right? So that's kind of what I want to think about. This year has been about surviving pandemic and our numbers are great. 80% of you have attended at least one virtual service. Our annual Sunday attendance, that's ASA, has more than doubled. I just totted up numbers this morning. During normal times, we average about 600, 650 people over the course of 3 services on a Sunday morning. We're at more than 1,500 people viewing our services. So we're reaching all kinds of people who are not here in Portland, people who couldn't be here physically, even if we were in person. And that's something that will not stop, even when we look on the other side of pandemic. We're always going to be streaming now. So that's a piece of our permanent ministry to offer our services to those joining us virtually. Education has doubled. We have 35% of you who are participating in Zoom education. That's a much higher percentage than when we're having classes in the building. That too will not stop. We're working to figure out some way to continue a hybrid model for education. All of the classes that we've taught sort of in the moment are also available on YouTube right now. And our YouTube channel is becoming a great resource for people all over the country, all over the world, who are watching our courses after the fact as videos and learning a lot and connecting with us in that way. So it's a whole new ministry that we've developed, that we are developing, that we should feel really good about. I have approximately 100 new members. That's depending on how you count. I think Kimberly said we have 117, something like that, new pledges, lots of people. So we have new members of this community who have never been in our building. That's a really interesting thing to think about. But to me, that says we're doing church in a way that is innovative. I expect we might be building a community of enfranchised members, some of whom we may never see in person. That might be our new normal. And I'm really interested to see what that means for us as we move forward. And I've got one more. Food distribution. We're feeding more people. Our food distribution is up 60% from last year, and our giving has remained really consistent. Our parishioners have stepped up. Many of you have far more of you have increased your pledge than have decreased it. I know that there's some of you who are struggling financially, and I'm really grateful for those of you who are continuing to kind of stay connected with us, even when we've heard from you. I can't pledge as much this year. We're so glad you're a part of this community. The amount of money you pledge is not the most important thing. What's important to me is that you're an enfranchised member, that you believe in what we're doing. And so many parishioners have been so generous with us this year. So we're really doing actually quite well. We've been reckoning with race this year. That's been the other key feature. Our vestry has committed to the goal of becoming an anti-racist congregation. We're just beginning that work, I would say. We're working on groundwork that has been laid in this place for many years. We claimed open and welcoming as our lodestar many years ago, far before I ever arrived at Trinity. So we're building on that good work that has been done over the generations. And we know we've got a long way to go as a community to truly step into the beloved community that Martin Luther King talked about, and that we believe Jesus is calling us to. So we've got some small groups of Trinity folks who have been engaging in education and discernment. That's been happening for some time, but the numbers have Zoom is allowing us to do a lot more of that in really interesting ways. So we're continuing to ask our questions. What does it mean for us to really take that work seriously? A small group of leaders at Trinity are connecting with churches across the state of Oregon. More than 100 churches have been convened as part of a Reckoning with Race group. So we're thinking not just about this congregation, but how, as the state of Oregon, might faith communities learn about the deeply racist roots that we inherit as faith communities. Oregon has a nasty history around race, as many of you know. So what does the call look like for Oregonians to do something really interesting around race and diversity in this state? And Trinity is becoming a leader in that conversation. I'm really excited to see where that goes. But the big question, I imagine, for all of us is, when are we going to be able to be in the building again? The short answer is, I don't know. But the staff is working on plans that, building on the pilgrimage model that Linda Potter pioneered for us, this way of bringing people safely into the cathedral space on Tuesdays and Saturdays. How do we welcome them appropriately? How do we contact trace them appropriately? How do we mark out the building, create some traffic flow patterns that are going to keep people safe? That model, we think, is a model that we can build off on a Sunday morning. So we're beginning the process of thinking through what a return to in-person worship might look like. We think that the cathedral building can accommodate 55 units of attendance, is how I think about this. So that can be an individual, that can be a couple that lives under the same roof, but kind of we've been working closely with OHA on this. How do we lay out the building to keep people at appropriate distance? But we've got this big space. Can we use it to have people physically in the space? And we think we can accommodate up to about 55 people in the nave. So we're working with the faith liaison team from Oregon Health Authority, with our diocesan authorities also, to discern what it will look like for us to begin to bring people into the cathedral on Sunday mornings. It's going to be very different. You won't be able to sing. You're going to have to stay masked the whole time. You won't be able to touch anybody. You will be able to receive communion. We think we can do that safely. Yesterday's consecration of our new bishop was a great way for us to kind of do a dry run of what it felt like to have 50 people in the building. How do we make sure that everybody's safe? And it actually worked really well. So I'm not ready to publicly commit to a timeline yet, because you know as well as I do that the numbers change every week. Right now, case numbers in Oregon are looking really good. So if those trends continue, it's possible that sometime in the next couple of months, we'll begin putting out online reservations by which Trinity parishioners or guests, anybody who wants to join us, will be able to make a reservation to join us in person for an 8 o'clock Rite 1 service or a 10 o'clock Rite 2 service. Those are the two services that we're going to be opening for in-person worship at some point, we think, in the near future. So we're working as a staff to kind of to feel like what that will look like. But I said to some of the Vestry alumni when I was kind of rolling this idea out, you know, this pandemic has taught me a lot about what I think church is, like what I think church buildings are for, what I think matters the most about what we do. I'm really excited that we've been able to do so much virtually. There's a lot that I love, frankly, about virtual worship. I love being able to finish up a service and then go to my office and go home. That's lovely. But it has also really tested me. And I don't think that anymore I can justify theologically completely virtual worship. I have come to discover that bodies in space matter to me a lot more than I thought they did. So I'm really delighted that we have spent a year experimenting with virtual worship. I think the experiments and the learning will pay off, and I have no regrets that we've done it. And I think it's time for us to maybe begin a year of experimenting with how to bring bodies back into space safely and appropriately and carefully, because I think that's what church is at its root. It's about bodies in space. So I'm really excited to begin this new phase of our pandemic life. And I am ready to entertain a few questions. We don't have a ton of time. I don't want to keep you till like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, but I'll take a few questions right now if you've got some. And probably the easiest way is for you to use the raise hand function so I can see you in the participants window if you have a question and I can call on you. Lynn Jenks, I see your physical hand, so go ahead and unmute.
I was just thinking as you were talking, it might be interesting to track in some way how many people in the congregation have gotten vaccines. As this is unfolding, you know, who's you know, medical people and all of those people are getting them, and then teachers are getting them. It would be interesting to know what percentage. I mean, that might help in some ways in figuring out how to figure out numbers. I don't know. It's just a thought.
Yeah, at this point, we're not building vaccine status into our thinking. That may change as things. Yeah. What I will say, I am really grateful that a number of our retired clergy, some of whom are scheduled to be vaccinated, have stepped up to the plate and said, "Hey, I'm going to be vaccinated at such and such a date. Can you use me?" At the beginning of the pandemic, I said, I want you folks staying home. Let those of us who are in the less dangerous population. Now that the tables have turned, and it's quite possible that clergy who have been vaccinated are going to be really valuable to us in these next couple of months. Yeah, so we are tracking some of that. And it's a great suggestion.
Just occurred to me. So yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Lynn.
Mm-hmm.
John and Susan Zoll, I see your hand.
So in looking at the entirety of Trinity, are we looking at any of the other spaces in terms of having bodies? I know Kempton is pretty much given over to it, you know, the food ministry, but is there any thought of smaller groups having spaces for smaller groups, Morrison, any other spaces besides the actual cathedral?
We have done a little bit of work on that. We have every space in the cathedral kind of mapped out in terms of how many people can be in it safely. So we do have the data on that. We are calling that a phase 2 when the cathedral campus is open again. And what in-person worship is not yet phase 2. Technically, the cathedral offices are still closed. We will be opening just the sanctuary itself, not the rest of the cathedral. When the time comes to do a phase 2 reopening, and that's we're really kind of working closely with the governor on that call. We're still in extreme risk, as you know, in Multnomah County. We're still in extreme risk category, so we're not ready for phase 2 yet. But when we get the clearance for phase 2, yes, that will be the time when small groups can begin to put in a proposal to meet in person. We want to think with you about what that will mean, how we do that well. But we've got the protocols in place to be able to do that when the time is right. Barbara Lamandry. You're still muted, Barbara.
I know, I was trying to unmute. I am so concerned that we haven't been able to offer the shower vans. And I'm wondering how we're going to reinstitute that. It can be done so safely, and I'm just concerned that the most needy are not getting served, and I don't know how to advocate to get that going again.
It's a question for Steve and Cheryl, really. I mean, as you know, Barbara, because you've been the part of the core group that's been doing that, we're working in partnership with Harbor of Hope, and we're sort of at the mercy of their decision making on that. We host the space and the volunteers, but we don't make it happen. So as soon as they feel comfortable bringing that ministry back, we are very comfortable having them on our property. But it's kind of in their ball game. Jan Anderson.
I'm not sure if anyone else from the Labyrinth Guild is here, as there's so many people in the Zoom, but we, as the weather warms up and dries out later this year, this is just my personal thing, would there be any way of using the rope labyrinth in the courtyard during the pilgrimages?
It's an interesting idea. I don't know.
Naval.
I don't know. Yeah, possibly. That's something to maybe bring up with the Labyrinth Guild and with Canon Matthew. He would be the staff decision point on that. But yeah, building other opportunities into pilgrimage would be a lovely thing to be able to do. And when the weather's nice, the courtyard's going to be a lovely place to spend time. So anything that we can do out there would be a great idea. Any last questions, friends, before we're a little over time. So I do want to transition us into the couple last things we have to do. I guess the last thing I want to say is kind of a note of personal privilege. Some of you remember a video that I did when I went journeying into the archives several months ago to think about how Trinity responded to the flu pandemic. And so it was almost 100 years ago. It was the annual meeting in 1919. So a little over 100 years ago, Trinity's 68th annual meeting. And we don't really know everything that was happening. The bishop was suing the rector at the time. There was a lot happening in that annual meeting. But Dr. Morrison, who was our rector in 1919, rose. This is all minuted, so Keith Walters is our gift to the future historians. He's the one who's taken the notes from this, and that's what future historians will take from this meeting, is whatever Keith tells them happened. But Dr. Morrison, at least as the minutes say, rose and thanked the congregation, thanked the annual meeting, and declared that never before in his pastorate had Trinity Church done better work than at present, and he encouraged them to continue their good work. And I was thinking about his commendation of the community as I was preparing for this annual report, and I want to stand on Dr. Morrison's shoulders and thank you and commend you. I have not served you as long as Dr. Morrison had served you. He was here for something like 30 years. I've only been here for 10, but never in my time at Trinity have I seen this congregation rise to the occasion like I have seen you rise to the occasion this year. So in his words, I commend you and I encourage you to continue your good work, and may God bless us all as we continue to do that. Bruce Neswick, if you're on the call, please save me from more tears, because it's time for me to mute and it's time for us to sing the doxology.
Thank you, Bruce. That was fabulous. Now, if there's no other business for the annual meeting of 2020 of Trinity Cathedral, I hear none. I declare the 170th annual meeting of the congregation adjourned. And God willing, we'll see you in Kempton Hall next year. Go in peace. Thank you for attending.